It's Friday, the 26th of January 2007, and this is Photo Walkthrough, episode number 46, Tutorial 12, Chapter 1.
Hi John, my name's Nicholas. I commented once before on the blog by typing into the text comments, so this is my first time doing an audio post. But I wanted to let you know, the comment that I wrote you before, and on the Flickr group as well, was that I had kind of forgotten how much I love photography until I discovered Photo Walkthrough and started creating digital images and using my cameras again. And I went on. I got a great new digital camera. I started using it quite a bit, and I've actually gone on to start working as a photographic assistant for a photographer here in New York. So, and as part of that, I've gone on to start shooting on my own as a professional photographer, and that's largely in part to the inspiration that I got from watching your tutorials and interacting with people on the message boards. I haven't been able to recently because I've been really busy, but I still watch the show every week, and I've been subscribing through iTunes and listening on my iPod, so I really appreciate you offering it in that format. I'm able to watch it while I'm on the subway every couple of days while I'm going into town, so I really appreciate it. So keep up the good work, and hopefully sometime I'll be able to meet you in person. I was looking at the different things that have been going on as far as workshops and that sort of thing, and that seems like it's a lot of fun. So wanted to let you know what an inspiration this has been for me, and thank you. So take care.
Wow, how cool is that? I don't know what to say. Thank you ever so much for the feedback, Nicholas. It's great to know that people are enjoying the show, and to think that somebody's taken up an old hobby or started taking more photographs as a result of listening to this or any of the other podcasts on the Photocast Network. That's just brilliant. Makes it all worthwhile. Thank you ever so much. If any of the rest of you would like to leave feedback, remember we have the audio comments box on the photowalkthrough.com homepage. I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, this is Martin of the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast, and I've teamed up with top camera bag manufacturer Lowepro to give you the chance to win an amazing Stealth Reporter D650 AW camera bag. To find out how, go to www.martinbaileyphotography.com as soon as is humanly possible.
Thanks, Martin. Sounds like a fantastic competition. Well done for getting Lowepro on board. I'll certainly be keeping an eye on what you get there. For the rest of you, please do check out Martin's show. Martin Bailey Photography is one of the shows in the Photocast Network, and a really good one. I'd quite like to just give a quick shout out to user Tom Rose on Flickr, who's been running an excellent Give It Your Best Shot challenge in the Photo Walkthrough group there on Flickr. Tom approached me with the idea a while back for a competition where people are given an image to start with and then produce the best version of it they can in Photoshop as a way of learning how to improve your Photoshop technique. I think it's a fantastic idea. I've been promising to help the guy out with promoting the little competitions for a while, and I'm really sorry I haven't got around to it yet, but Tom started without me in the Flickr group there, and I'm glad he has. It's got some great responses to his first one. If you're interested in just spending a short while playing around with an image and seeing what you can make of it and seeing how other people have treated the same image, it's a really fun way to learn some Photoshop. I recommend that you join the Photo Walkthrough group on Flickr and give it a go. There's a thread there called Give It Your Best Shot Challenge. That's where you can find out all about it. Okay, and now it's time for today's composition segment, which is about leading lines. Leading lines. We've talked about leading lines back in Tutorial 11, Chapter 4, where we discuss vanishing points. Vanishing points can be created by converging leading lines. Leading lines are lines within the photograph that lead the eye. They might lead the eye into the picture or out of it. They might lead to the subject of the picture, or they might be the subject. Leading lines can give energy and motion to a picture. They send your eye on a journey. Different kinds of lines can provoke different reactions. Horizontals and verticals can be very final. They can obstruct your eye and stop its motion. Curves and diagonals tend to encourage motion and energy, and also radial lines emerging from a point can strongly focus attention at the centre, like in a vanishing point. If you're photographing a scene with lines in it, then let the lines suggest your composition. Try to include the lines in the shot, and if you can, let them lead to a subject. Certainly try and compose the lines at a diagonal if you possibly can, and remember that your viewer's eyes will follow the line. Be sure to look for unwanted leading lines as well. They might lead your viewer's eye out of the picture. And remember to look for things that can create leading lines. Certain things that can make lines are fences, roads or rivers, rays of light, movement in water if you do a long exposure, shadows, hair, or motion if you do a long shutter speed. So your assignment this week is to take a picture that uses leading lines. This is the first new assignment of the year, so I'm not going to be unkind and give you any special rules today. Just take any picture you like that uses leading lines and submit it to the Flickr group pw_assignments as always. And I'll show the best of them next week. Remember, if you're not a member of Flickr, then you're missing a great opportunity to share your photography and learn from others. There's a wonderful community of very friendly and helpful photographers in the Photo Walkthrough group on Flickr, and I always encourage you to post your images and comment on other people's. You'll learn more from commenting on other people's pictures than you will by having people comment on yours. The simple act of examining a picture and deciding why you like or dislike it is incredibly instructional. So if you want to improve your photography, please do join in. Just before we get started on today's tutorial, I'd quite like to just mention and say thank you to all the people that have been writing reviews for Photo Walkthrough, particularly on the Yahoo podcast section. We've got 29 reviews there now, and every single one of them is a 5-star review. So I'd just like to say, if you're one of the people that's posted a review there, a massive thank you. I really, really appreciate your positive comments. I'd also like to say a quick thank you to anybody that's posted a review on iTunes for the show. I have a suspicion that the reviews are regional, like the iTunes Music Store itself, which is different for the United States, and then for the UK, and then for Europe, and so on. I think each different location sees different reviews. I can only see one review here in the UK. I'd love to know if there are reviews that people can see in America for the show. So one of you write in and let me know if there's more than just the one there. I'd love to know. And if you've written us a review there, great, thank you very much. If you've not, and if you're enjoying the show, please do swing by one of those places and drop a review. It does help promote the show, and it helps us build our listener base. And of course, the more listeners we do, the easier it is to keep producing more of the show. So thanks for that. And also one final thing, remember the dig.com podcast site has just come online. It seems to be coming out of beta. We've got beta for you Americans. We've got a dig link on the photowalkthrough.com homepage on the left hand side there. If you've got a few moments, I'd love it if you swung by dig and click the dig button on our podcast. That's going to be a really important way for podcasters to promote their shows, so I recommend that you dig all the shows that you really like there. That will certainly be appreciated by all of the podcast producers. Okay, let's get on with the tutorial for today. Hello, right, I'm going to start today on the Singer Sunrise image that you've seen at the start of the show there. I just thought I'd begin today's show by showing you some of the other photos that I took that same day. Singer Island is an island just on the coast of Florida, and we were visiting there with some friends. And these friends have an apartment in one of the apartment blocks on Singer Island. And we were lucky enough to be staying with those guys. This image is kind of subtitled "The Benefits of Jet Lag," because this was very shortly after we'd arrived in Florida, and we were still very jet lagged, and as a result I was up at some ungodly hour in the morning. I'm normally not an early riser, but this time I was up early enough to watch the sun come up, and because we were in this apartment block and we were 9 or 10 stories off the ground, we decided to stand on the balcony and watch the sun come up. Literally, this apartment block is right on the coast. Singer Island is just a very thin spit of land and it's eroding. Unfortunately, it's a beautiful place, but they've got some real erosion problems. So the apartment blocks overlooking the sea get these fantastic sunrises quite frequently, so this is not an unusual sort of sight for Singer Island. But I thought I would just quickly show you the sort of images I was getting that morning, and I was shooting with my old camera, my 10D. I'm now on the 5D, but this is the 10D, and I believe I had the 1740 or possibly the 2470 lens on. I could look at the EXIF data, but I can't frankly be bothered. So you can see what I was just starting out here. The sun was just coming up behind. We had this sort of bank of cloud in the distance, and what I was looking at here was we had these clouds in the distance, and we also had some closer clouds that were sort of sitting above them. So we had these large blocks of cloud at the top here, and these smaller clouds down here, with the sun just breaking through the smaller clouds and lighting up the bottom of these larger clouds, which I was quite enjoying, and I took quite a few photos like that. And I was also at this stage playing with exposure settings on the camera just to see what I could zoom into and see what I could get shutter speed wise, that sort of thing, aperture wise as well. And I ended up shooting at around about, I think I ended up at a 250th. You can see here I'm playing with 125th, 180th, messing around a bit with apertures. That one I went down to f8, and I think I ended up settling on, for this, or not this image, for the image that we ended up choosing for this shot. This is the image that we'll be working on today. But I think for this image, yeah, we got 250th 70mm, so it looks like I had the 2470 lens on. And what did I say? 250th at f something. Where is it? I think it was 5.6. Let's have f5.6. So, just going quickly through as I say, this was a sort of a developmental thing. These took place over the period of around about half an hour, maybe, watching the sun come up, and you can see the sun slowly rising through those clouds in the distance there. And I slowly zoomed in as time went by. You can see a bit of the tree just to the left there. I'll come back to those trees in a minute. I got some nice shots past one of those palm trees as well. And you can see initially I was trying to capture that sunlight on the bottom of the clouds there, because that was interesting me. But as the sun started to come through the clouds here, we started to get these wonderful crepuscular or god rays coming out of the top of the clouds, which came out kind of, you're looking at raw files here. These are totally unprocessed, so they look a little bit grey, and you can see some definite blue in the clouds in the distance there, and the god rays are looking a little bit grey as well. But you know, that's just source material. Obviously what we're going to end up with is a much more processed version. I seem to get that one badly out of focus. That one, as I say, is the one I ended up choosing. There's still a lot of work needs to be done on that one, but we'll come back to that in a minute. That's the PSD. I took a couple of these like this. I quite like the way these rays are clearly coming towards us, not just directly up into the sky, but towards us. You can see the ray coming past the front of the cloud there. So it really is as though the sun is sort of on the horizon. It's not just it's not a million miles away. It's just behind that cloud, just over there. So I love that feeling of the sun being sort of closer by. And then I zoomed back out again and tried to get some of these rays going past the clouds here. Not a bad shot by any means. I ended up only processing 4 or 5 of these, and I really ought to go back at some stage, see if I can get a couple more shots out of this collection. I mean, things like that looks very dark, but you never know. It's raw. I might be able to get more out of it. That one looks a little overexposed, but again, it's raw. I might be able to get more out of it. So the lighting here was extremely hard to judge. I was looking at the picture on the back of the camera, and as always the case, it's extremely hard to judge how the exposure is just from the picture on the back of the camera. You're really better off judging it based on the histogram than on how the image itself looks, because I'm stood here on a balcony with the wind in my eyes and the sun shining through these clouds, and the sun in my eyes to some extent as well. So your perception when you're looking at the camera is very subjective. And you look at the back of the camera, and a shot like this looks fantastic on the back of the camera. you get it home and you open it up in the Bridge or in the raw file converter, and all of a sudden it looks very badly underexposed. So I took a few like this, but actually they're kind of moody. I might at some point go and try a process of that. Really all it needs is more colour. I mean, if you look at the line involved here, I mean, this is a sort of a compositional technique line. We've got a lovely sort of silhouetted line. Oh, excuse me. We've got a lovely silhouetted line along the top of the clouds there, which is rather nice, and we've got sort of lines outlining these clouds in the sky. I could envision a shot coming out of that where we've got a lot of orange underneath the clouds, and we've got a lot of sort of cyan through to blue in the sky, and we've just got this sort of silhouetted sunrise going on. I might give that a go sometime. And then we've got a couple more shots here where the sun's just started to go behind some thin straggly bits of cloud, and we've got these wonderful loads of spikes of rays coming out here and more coming down out of the bottom of the clouds into the sea. And I think that was one of the ones I did a process on, so that's the PSD. Again, more of me getting the exposure wrong. Got quite a few of these wrong, I'm afraid. I'd love to tell you that I get it right every time, but and I've mentioned before, a good photographer never shows his mistakes. Perhaps that means I'm not a good photographer, but here you go. This is just to show that you can get one or two good shots and impress people, and still take a load of rubbish ones. So this is I quite like this as well. I love the way there's this haze in the air that is causing the God rays to sort of bloom here in the sky, and it's not overexposed. It's just very, very bright, and you can see it's not overexposed because we've got highlights on the top of the cloud there inside it, which is I think that's particularly lovely. But I'm not sure it's necessarily a good or a well composed photo. I've got the horizon exactly halfway up the frame there. I've no real idea what I was thinking about, but I think I had the camera on the monopod at the time, and I was just shooting away without really thinking too much, although you can see there was some thought process going on here. In almost all of these I have composed the sunrise, which is bound to be the centre of focus of the shot, where the sun is, and all the lines leading to it. I have at least composed that to a rule of thirds kind of position, sort of third of the way up, third of the way across. In almost all of these shots I've used the rule of thirds. That one's very nice. If we've got some spikes coming out here. Now this is not rays coming through the clouds anymore. This now is lines based on what this is to do with the lens. This is to do with the aperture of the lens. If you use a small aperture, you sometimes find that you get these starlights around light sources. You quite often see this if you're shooting in the night time and you've got point light sources like street lights. You quite often get these. So these now are, because I was using a relatively small aperture, and I think we'll see more of those. That's another one of the ones I post-processed. That's the PSD there. Again, with the very bright top here and the horizon dead centre. Not really sure I like that anymore, but this is stuff I did over a year ago now. So 2005, look, November 2005, so well over a year ago. It's fun to come back to these things though. So I'll just quickly skip through the rest of these and we'll get on to doing some actual work on them. You can see I started looking to the side here. I wanted to see if I could get some of these with the beach in, but I started to get a little bit of lens flare here, if you look at that. And that's also there on some of the photos coming up. Yeah, and it gets worse really. That's it's stuff I can clone out. It's not really a problem, and I liked the reflections on the sea here. And that's one of the ones I processed up. This is not real colour anymore. This is now one I tried to do a gradient with. I picked some colours that I liked and just completely did a black and white conversion and applied a Photoshop gradient to it, which is a kind of fun shot, but not so. It kind of walks the line between real and fake. Not one I've shown a lot of, that particular picture. Doing the vertical for a change. Not so sure about the focus on those. Again, we're getting lens flare here. Moving on. There's the palm tree I mentioned, and as I was taking some of these shots of this palm tree, we've got a couple more just of clouds. And as I was taking some of these shots of the palm tree, I noticed people walking by. So here's this little runner guy. I quite like this and the next shot. I think that one's slightly better. I like the angle of this leaf a little bit more, but I have a feeling that there's maybe a square crop in there somewhere. Just maybe crop it off here and crop it off here, try and remove some of this seaweed, and I have a feeling that if I could get the guy somewhere nearer the rule of thirds point, that might make a pleasing composition, and perhaps also emphasise him as a subject a little bit. So again, there's some possibilities here of things I might work on, but I think that's the end. So that's all the shots I took that day. Hopefully that's given you the sort of a realistic idea of the sort of thing that you might come away from a day's shooting or an hour or so shooting with. And this shot here, 9729, is the one that I ended up picking for today's show because I think it's the one that came out best of the collection. Certainly of the ones I've processed anyway. And as you can see, by the way, I've gone through these and I've star rated everything as I've gone through. Let's just go to this view. This is the light table view. And what I've done is, just as I've gone through, I've graded which ones I think were worth keeping and which ones weren't. And as you can see, I've kept all of them anyway because I don't like throwing things away. Interestingly, this one that I ended up not really showing many people is one of the few that I graded as a 5. And this one also, despite the composition. It's funny, my perception of what an image would score has changed a great deal recently. So this one that I ended up working on today is actually only a 3. So anyway, let's go and do the raw conversion on that one. So that one's the PSD. This one is the raw file. And as always, when I press Ctrl R, which opens the raw converter, I record at 800 by 600, and as you can see, this window is quite a bit bigger than that, so apologies for having to scroll around a little bit in it, but here is our raw file, and as you can see, this is actually the version that I've put some settings in on. This is actually all on auto, but the bit where I've tweaked it a little bit, I've tweaked this curve a little bit, just to brighten it up a little. If you go for a strong contrast, you can see the image is looking just a little bit muddy, so basically the same thing, but just a little bit more air, as it were, a little bit more top end brightness. Just brighten the whole thing by making the crossover point. You can see in the background there's a straight diagonal and then our curve over the top, and the crossover point, I've moving that crossover point down the line makes the whole thing overall brighter. So that's a pretty good point for our starting point for our image anyway. You'll note there's no added saturation in here. I did play around, I remember doing this. I did play around because one of the things I loved about this image, and one of the things that I brought out in the final version, is the extra colour. We've got some lovely oranges here, we've got some lovely cyans and blues in the sky. But if you drag the saturation up, for a start, the oranges here become a fairly unattractive colour, and worst of all, the clouds take on this really cyan blue tint that is very unattractive. Really, the only part of the image that benefits from that saturation being increased is the cyan sky here, which does look pretty good here at least. This is not really the kind of blue I want at the top here, and I really don't like how the clouds have gone. So just dragging that saturation back to 0, just type 0 on that and leave the contrasted auto. The rest is all pretty much how the auto settings would have it, and then we'll open that image up. So if I right, just off the bottom of the screen where you can't see it, just down here off the bottom is an open button, so I'm going to click that, and that's going to open it in Photoshop for us. Okay, that's it for today. Just before I go, I'd like to mention another podcast I've started with my wife called Just Relax, It'll Happen. Here's a quick promo. Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Ruth.
And we just wanted to let you know about our new show where we talk about trying to conceive and infertility issues.
For the last 2 years, we've been trying to have a baby without any success, and all the way along, people have been saying to us the most frustrating thing: just relax, it'll happen.
So that's the title of our show. Just relax, it'll happen.
So come along and listen in while we talk about what's happened to us and what we've learned along the way.
You can find us at justrelax.btpodshow.com as we try and take some of the taboo out of the subject of infertility.
That's right.
Obviously that show's totally unrelated to photography, but if you're interested in hearing any more from me, or if conception or fertility issues affect you, then you might want to take a look at justrelax.btpodshow.com, and you can find out there why I've been a little bit hit and miss recently about releasing shows. And also, another new podcast is the Photocast Network Roundtable. It's approximately bi-weekly. Do I mean bi-weekly? Every other week. So it's an every other week show where we get 4 or 5 of the podcasters from the Photocast Network together and do a roundtable discussion show about photography. We did our last one a couple of weeks ago, and the new one should be out very soon, if not already. Keep an eye on the Photocast Network website, which is www.photocastnetwork.com. Keep an eye there for new shows, but also any shows where I take part, I'll also link them in the photo walkthrough feed. Okay, that's us done. Let's just finish up with the submissions to the Christmas assignment, and boy oh boy, doesn't Christmas seem like a long time ago.
And suddenly I can see I'm in the shadow of you. I'm in the shadow of you. I can see you in my mind's rose-tinted eye. Somewhere you're drifting by, your heels rolling sparks on the lucky streets. While you and I left behind, stuck and blind. But I can see you from here. I can see yourself clear. You are the lights. You are the lights. You have the day. I have the night. We have the hours together.
Photo Walkthrough is a weekly video podcast. You can subscribe through iTunes or by visiting www.photowalkthrough.com. Subscription is free, and new shows will be automatically downloaded as soon as they're released. And if you'd like to get in touch with the show, email photowalkthrough@gmail.com or leave a comment using the audio comments box on our homepage.
Cries, thunderstorm breaks from the northern sky, chasing you back to the
Photocastnetwork.com, your photography resource in the podosphere. Photocastnetwork.com